Hi everyone, I'm Rosie and welcome back to my channel. I'll show you how to make the softest and fluffiest sourdough cinnamon rolls. They're beautifully caramelized on the bottom with tons of pillowy layers of cinnamon goodness. And they're topped with the most delicious vanilla cream cheese icing. This recipe is prepared a day in advance, so all you have to do in the morning is roll out of bed and bake them. Let's get started. I'm going to start by making a roux, also called a Tangzhong. This is the secret to making these cinnamon rolls super soft. Don't be afraid, it's easier than you think and just takes a few minutes. I have 25 grams of bread flour, which is about 3 tablespoons. I'm going to first whisk the dry flour to get out any clumps, and then I'm going to add half a cup of room temperature water. Whisk again until it's smooth with no clumps. Then, cook the mixture on medium-low heat while stirring the entire time until it has thickened to the consistency of pudding. It should be smooth and silky. This only takes about 1 to 2 minutes. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm a very simple baker. I cut out steps wherever I can, but I promise you, making this roux is worth it. Take the roux off the heat and let it cool a bit while you assemble the rest of the ingredients. I'm measuring out 475 grams of bread flour, but all-purpose flour would work as well. I add 1 tablespoon of white sugar, 1½ teaspoons of Himalayan pink salt, and a 1/4 cup of grapeseed oil. You could use any vegetable oil with neutral flavor, or even substitute it with melted butter. Then I add 2 tablespoons of unfed starter straight from the fridge. I personally prefer oil in the dough because it keeps the rolls super soft, even once they've cooled down to room temperature. Also, there's enough butter in the cinnamon filling and icing to provide a rich buttery flavor. By now, the roux has cooled down a bit, but it's still a little warm. I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of room temperature water to further cool it down. Give it a quick mix, but it's okay if there's some clumps of the roux left. Add it to the flour mixture. Why is the roux or Tangzhong worth the effort? By cooking the flour in water, the starches in the flour absorb more water and become a gel. When this gel is then mixed into the dough, the bread retains more moisture during baking. This creates a softer and fluffier texture and keeps the bread fresher for longer. Just mix until there's no dry flour left. This is one of the ugliest ugly duckling doughs. It's super shaggy, so I don't recommend kneading it at this stage. Just let it rest for 30 to 60 minutes and it'll be less sticky and much easier to work with. After the rest period, gently knead the dough to smooth out any clumps. The dough will still be a bit shaggy, but it'll get smoother and more elastic as the day goes on. Throughout the day, about every 2 to 3 hours, perform some gentle folds to help develop the gluten. I usually get in about 3 to 4 rounds of these folds. By the evening, the dough is nicely aerated and is ready to be formed into the rolls. First, I'm going to lightly grease my baking pan with butter. To make the cinnamon filling, I start with a 1/4 cup or half a stick of salted butter that I've microwaved for 15 seconds to soften. I add 1/3 cup of dark brown sugar and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. If you want to use unsalted butter instead, you certainly can, but I do recommend adding a pinch of salt to bring out the flavors. I'm going to lightly flour my board and roll out the dough as large as I can. This dough is pretty soft, so it should roll out easily. I'm actually using the back of my cutting board so the grooves don't get in the way. Spread the cinnamon filling evenly. You can make the cinnamon filling in advance, but if it hardens by the time you make the rolls, warm it up a bit. You want the filling to spread easily so it doesn't tear the dough. On the side I'm going to start the roll, I try to get the filling as close as possible to the edge. On the far edge, I leave about 1 centimeter of dough without filling so I can easily seal the roll at the end. Most cinnamon roll recipes tell you to roll on the long edge of the dough. I actually like to roll on the short edge so I get more layers of the cinnamon swirl. As I'm rolling, I'm also gently stretching the dough as I go to get as tight of a roll as possible. I pinch the free edge tightly to seal and then give the roll a little wiggle to stretch it out. I'm going to cut the roll into 9 pieces. I include the end pieces, but feel free to trim those off if you prefer. Let the rolls do their final proof overnight and they'll be ready to bake in the morning. My room temperature is about 66 degrees Fahrenheit, so I do the final proof at room temperature. If your home is warmer than that, you can put the rolls in the fridge instead so they don't overproof by the morning. Just let them sit out at room temperature for about 20 minutes before you bake them. Just before baking, I like to brush the tops with melted butter to help them stay softer as they bake. I'm using about 2 tablespoons of butter here. While the rolls are baking, I'm going to make the vanilla cream cheese icing. I have 4 tablespoons of salted butter and 4 ounces of cream cheese that I've microwaved for about 30 seconds to soften. I add 2 teaspoons of vanilla paste, but you can certainly use vanilla extract. And then I mix in about 1 cup of powdered sugar, a portion at a time. You can add more or less depending on the level of sweetness you prefer. There's no harm in tasting as you go along, right? By the way, you can prepare the icing up to a few days in advance and store it in the fridge to make your life even easier on baking day. Once the rolls are out of the oven, I like to apply the icing so it melts into all those layers and softens the tops. You can also add extra icing just before serving. Depending on how much icing you would like to have on your rolls, you might have some left over. This icing freezes really well, so you can save any extra for the next time you make cinnamon rolls. Just defrost it in your fridge overnight and be ready to go the next morning. I promise these are some of the best cinnamon rolls you've ever had. They are so good they just melt in your mouth. I hope you give this recipe a try and let me know in the comments how it turns out for you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more easy cooking and baking videos, and say hi in the comments. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.